very famous author called Melissa Bruce, who's releasing her first novel, Picnic at Mount Disappointment it's called, about the disappointments in life, I think. But you'll have to read that to find out what it's about. It's about cars, not the author.
I bought the book because I didn't know what to expect, but I actually thought it sounded really good.
Congratulations, Melissa. Beautiful book, and it's going to our granddaughter.
It's a big moment for me. I'm a very proud mother. I think she's written a beautiful book.
No, you can look at me.
My name is Deborah Adelaide, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to launch this beautiful book by Melissa Bruce. So welcome all of you. It's a really great occasion when any book is launched, but when it's your first book, it's absolutely special, and it's a great thrill to see the room full, everyone here supporting Melissa. So big welcome and congratulations to Melissa. I'm a writer and I teach creative writing at UTS, which is where I first met Melissa, and I actually don't remember how many years ago. Was it 10 or more? As a teacher of creative writing, it doesn't get better than this. This is the acme of what one does, coming to the launch of a book. That's a project that's been worked on in the student's degree, and I've had that privilege a few times. It's absolutely wonderful. We're really, really proud of our creative writing students at UTS, and it absolutely doesn't get better than this. A book launch. So Melissa is a very multi-talented person. She's very hard-working and committed as a writer. She's also a very, very intelligent and very beautiful writer. And this book, Picnic at Mount Disappointment, is not only a great idea, a verse novel, it's an idea that was very hard to bring to completion, and Melissa never ever let go of that idea. She never gave up on it. She worked on it really hard until it was finished. And not many writers really not many emerging writers really understand the kind of commitment involved. So I'm just hosting the event this afternoon. We are having the book launched by Gabrielle Carey, so I'm going to introduce her. Gabrielle is a friend, a long standing friend of mine, and also a colleague at UTS. She's known for her many books, and especially her acclaimed memoirs, such as my favourite, Waiting Room, and most recently her personal book about the author Randolph Stowe, which is the award-winning book Moving Among Strangers. So I'm now going to invite Gabrielle up to launch this book.
Thank you, Deborah. And yes, I have to agree, this is a big thrill, and it doesn't happen all that often that you work for years and years with a student, and then finally you get to come and see something come to fruition like this. And so yeah, just confirming that sort of sense of thrill. Good afternoon and welcome, and again, I'm just going to repeat what Deborah says, it's a very special occasion. More than 10 years ago, I read one of the early drafts of Picnic at Mount Disappointment, and I was immediately excited. There was a freshness to it and a wonderful rhythm. What a very unusual and inspired idea to write a YA novel in verse. I was taken with both the form and the content. We all understand the importance and the impact of coming-of-age stories, and this year, it's 50 years exactly since the American writer S.E. Hinton produced her classic The Outsiders, which is said to have kicked off the entire YA genre. Now, Hinton started writing The Outsiders when she was 15 and it was published when she was 17, so there's a reason why it feels so authentic and real. But what's amazing about Melissa's Picnic is that it has the same sense of authenticity and reality, and yet she wrote it over a period of 10 years, mostly during her 40s. Far removed from those tumultuous teenage years. I still find it astonishing how superbly she manages to inhabit the mind and body of her young adolescent protagonist. How she has managed to imagine her way into the emotions of the teenage narrator, Lucinda, who is trying to adjust to her new step-family, her new school, and her new home on a farm in rural Victoria. The story of Lucinda undergoing the loss of her mother, the absence of her father, and the uncomfortable adjustment to step-siblings and a stepmother, and much more, is a story that, in less capable hands, might have fallen into a dark, angst-ridden tale of adolescence, suffering and endurance. But in Picnic, tragedy and disappointment is always leavened, thanks to Melissa's beautifully light and poetic touch. Even the scene where Lucy loses her virginity, which I still find excruciating, is told with humour and a kind of equanimity that suggests that the reader can be confident that this girl, despite everything, will grow into a mature and dignified woman. Another thing that stood out for me when I first read the manuscript, and then when I read it again recently, and as I said to Melissa, I just couldn't believe that with this rereading 10 years later, it still felt so fresh. And what I was impressed with was the physicality, among other things. As a teacher of writing, I'm always begging students to incorporate sensuality, temperature, weather, smells, textures. But I didn't need to beg Melissa because it was all there. She has an acute sense for environment and landscape, as well as an innate understanding of how to interweave emotion with physical action. Even when Lucy is sitting on the rooftop, writing in her journal, staring at the stars and trying to float away from her immediate reality, we always feel grounded. And there's something else that she captures about that period of adolescence, and that's the simultaneous excitement and fear involved in becoming an adult, including those moments when Lucy wants to retreat to childhood, or when she's trying to act an adult and yet internally still seeing things as a child. Remember that Lucy's ambition is to be an actress, so many of her attempts at adulthood could simply be rehearsals. I particularly like the scene where her father is washing up and trying to talk to Lucy about contraception after springing her in the bedroom. And all she can focus on is the way the detergent bubbles are sticking to his arms and the difficulty he's having in stacking the slippery, over-soaped dishes. Now, this may seem really minor, but there's a kind of little detail that really makes a manuscript real and authentic and meaningful to me. And it's, in a sense, it's a reminder that childhood is a time of living in a bubble, and it's a time we get to blow bubbles, and it's the only time also that we have bubble baths. And I'm not trying to say that this scene is an attempt at obvious or deliberate symbolism. It's just a lovely way of showing how the teenage mind is part child and part adult. And it's why adolescence and this book is so poignant, because we get to witness how that part child and part adult coexist and develop. And that is an incredibly difficult thing to do in writing. It's been said that all books are written to try to recover something we've lost. That magical, semi-torturous time of being a teenager has been beautifully recovered in Melissa's Picnic at Mount Disappointment. I do believe that all really good manuscripts will eventually find a publisher, and it's great to know that my first impression of Picnic all those years ago, when I knew that I was reading something very special, has been finally vindicated. And I want to congratulate Melissa with all my heart for her faith, her persistence and her patience, and thank her also for the honour of launching this book today. And also, I just thought just now, I should also thank the publishers, because we know that we know how timid publishers are generally, and we know that this has been a difficult book to find a publisher because it's been a bit out there, or first novel for teenagers, no, we can't do that. So to get someone who's got the guts and to go, yes, I believe in this, I'm going to go for it, that's a really great thing too. So congratulations to Melissa and to publishers. And I urge you to go and buy a copy after you hear Melissa do her reading.
That is just the most beautiful introduction. Thank you, both of you. Incredible authors and wonderful, powerful women who have supported me so much over the years whilst I was developing my journey on this writing path. The irony of my terror today is that I've earned a living out of coaching public speaking for 20 years. And I'm meant to be a writer, and this is like version 21 of my few words I thought I should say today. So, oh my God, I just feel so honoured to have all you beautiful people here supporting me. And my first version of the speech took 25 minutes just for the thank yous. And I figured that that's not a really interesting speech, although I really want to thank so many people who helped me. So I'm actually going to, now that I've embraced my new social media phobia, I'm going to post the detailed thank you speech on my Facebook author page rather than doing that now. But I'm immensely grateful to you both, and Gleebooks and Ginninderra Press, and my mother, who incidentally is not the mother in this book, and who inspired me with my great passion for literature. I learnt that a book doesn't write itself. It's not like a flower where you water it and you walk away and it grows. You actually have to keep coming back to it, but you can't do it all on your own, and all of these people have been amazingly helpful. I think the most interesting thing about this book for me is that it exists. You're right, it took a long time and it was not easy for me. It reminds me of that poem about Ithaca, based on the epic poem, the Odyssey by Homer. It's just the incredible journey that it's taken me on. And of course, Ithaca is much more about the journey than the resulting place. I think I started writing this book on the back of a horse in about 1981, so it's even longer than a decade. And back then I was a lot like Lucy, the girl in the story, but along the way she morphed into fiction. And I know you all thought you were coming to a book launch today, but actually it's the conclusion of a marathon Olympic equestrian event, and today is the official dismounting ceremony. In 1894, a couple of British explorers by the name of Hume and Hovell were setting out in Victoria to find some rivers and things, pastoral land, and they climbed an 800-metre mountain hoping to get a great perspective of Port Phillip Bay. And unfortunately, once they'd reached the summit of this mountain, they discovered they couldn't see the wood for the trees, and hence they named it Mount Disappointment. And that is the title of the book. It is an actual place in Victoria. Exactly 100 years later, actually, I'm just talking a little bit about what inspired this book, how it came to be. I was in a past life working as a theatre director, and it had been a long-term goal and dream of mine to reach this goal. And I was at the peak of it for me. I was directing for the Sydney Theatre Company. And it was a play called Top Girls by Carol Churchill. And it was about a woman called Marlene who was at the start of the play toasting her success with her historical sisters in a dream sequence. And it was set in the Thatcher era where, you know, everyone was pretty excited about having a woman in the top job, but she wasn't quite the woman that women wanted to call a sister. So it was ironic, the play, because Marlene's thrilled to be at the top of her career goal, but she was also quite unhappy. And ironically, I'd reached the peak of my own dream, and I felt a little bit like Marlene. So I realised after that there are two kinds of disappointments. Well, there's probably a whole lot more, but at least I had those books that say 7 steps to success. Anyway, there's at least two kinds of disappointments, and one's just the usual vicissitudes of life. You know, that life's not a picnic, and you just get back on the horse. But there's another kind that I detected, that I experienced, and that's that insatiable desire to fulfill impossible expectations. The kind that you think will give your life meaning and validation and credibility when you set out on those expectations and find that nothing really can in the way that you perhaps thought. So I was looking for a story, and I was meditating on this idea of the philosophy of disappointment, if you like, and I came up with this term for it. I called it the cry of the Western soul, or if anyone's read Madame Bovary, I call it the condition of Bovarism. And it's that great chasm you might fall into between longing and fulfillment, and it's a kind of dis-ease, I suppose, of not enoughness. And I think it's fueled by the culture we live in that celebrates achievement and appearance and acquisitions. So it's something that I care about, because I think that even in our Western world there are many people who fall into that place and of not enoughness, and it can be quite dangerous, particularly for young adults. Don't worry. All this philosophical stuff about the themes in the book, actually, I asked a friend of mine, Casey, who's especially here from Lismore today, pretended he was going to jury duty and surprised me, thank you. I asked him, you know, when he first saw the book what he thought, and he said, oh, yeah, okay. Looks like a speedy read about a girl in a paddock full of bulls. So that's not too far from the truth, metaphorically speaking. And though it took a decade to write, it looks like some kind of cryptic Homeric poem. It actually, I think, canters along at a nice pace and only takes a few hours to read. So I was looking for this story and thinking about the coming of age stage, which is fraught with disappointment. Life's not as you expected. Adults are not your heroes. The world's not what you thought. There's maybe no happily ever after, and you can't see the wood for the trees. And I started thinking about my own stage of coming of age when I lived at the foot of Mount Disappointment, and it was the early 80s where we thought everything was possible, and I mean, Lady Di had just, a kindergarten teacher, married a prince and become a princess, and Madonna was writing Material Girl, and well, there was a woman who became Prime Minister of England, and everything was possible. However, we were not aware that just around the corner, you know, there was famine in Africa and the pending AIDS crisis and the global recession, and the People's Princess was on her way to being killed by the paparazzi in an emerging culture of celebrity. So I wondered, you know, how was this any different from today? How many likes do young people need to have to feel enough, to feel worthy? How many young people living in the first world today are harming themselves, drinking, medicating, eliminating themselves, starving themselves, just because they feel like they're not enough? And this character Lucy started to emerge. Lucinda, well, she calls herself Lucinderella because for those who like a simple story, it's really just a fairy tale, or an anti-fairy tale if you like, sorry. And Lucy is in a sense suffering from that cry of the Western soul, a way to feel like she's enough. She's looking for a prince in a haystack. She's trying to get famous at the start of the 80s in a small town called Wandong at the foot of Mount Disappointment. So, thank you for that. I thought I would read a really short scene, just a 2-minute scene. I'm very nervous about people falling asleep. That was my biggest fear. But I feel like I'd like to just say a tiny bit about why it's written in such a strange verse-style format. And should I say something about this? Go on. All right. Well, you might be wondering why I wrote it like that. Some people reel back in horror. Oh my God, a verse novel, a poem. And I thought it happened by accident, but actually this week I realised it was destined by the fates. It started, where is Mum? Where's Mum? It's your fault. It started with Mum. She inspired me with literature from the start. The first books were The Cat in the Hat and Christopher Robin, and then The Highwayman. Anyone remembers that poem? You know, the road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, and the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. And I memorised and performed it really badly, even worse than that for my class. And following that, there were Keats and Eliot and Beckett and Shakespeare and fiction. And I realised that a large number of the works that I felt really close to had in fact been in the style of a verse narrative from a very early age. I then went on to work in theatre and toured England with the Royal Shakespeare doing Hamlet, that very long verse story in iambic pentameter. I worked for the Victoria State Opera and stage managed a play based on the libretto, or they created a libretto out of The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is a marathon verse narrative. So this style had actually haunted me and followed me. And then the Churchill play that I mentioned, Top Girls, was also written in an unusual format with overlapping dialogue to create naturalistic conversation. And yeah, so I went off sort of to contemplate this idea of the philosophy of disappointment and what could be a remedy for that, and lived on a Greek island with the ancient Greek gods, asking for them for help with that question. Came back and enrolled in the UTS master's degree, and I'd written this story as 70,000 words of short stories, and then I'd written it as 100,000 words in prose form, at which point I sent a few chapters to Deborah, and she sent it back with a little yellow post-it note saying plot. Which, worse than losing one is not ever having had one. That really was very helpful, thank you. But then I went to another class, and in that class, my teacher, Tegan, said to me, "Oh, I think you're overwriting." Oh, I was so furious. I did not like that feedback one single bit. And so the next 2 stories I wrote with as few words as you possibly could imagine. Take that if you don't like words. Both those stories were immediately published. Others had not been. And I had to humbly thank her. And then I took my 100,000 words of the novel in prose, and I ruthlessly economized it into this new thing, and so therefore the fates kind of had me back at the beginning with some kind of a verse narrative and a girl writing. And I don't know, poetry, I wouldn't aspire to call it that. I'm calling it econometry, for want of a better word. But the best part is that the new sort of Twitter text message generation seems to embrace all the white space on the page. It's familiar, so that's exciting. So yeah, I'll just read a little scene. How about that? And then we can have some more to drink. This scene is on page 52. Scene, I call it a scene because they're kind of like scenes. 18. Lucy rides a lot of things. Horses. She rides motor mowers, utes. I hate to say it, but some of the locals. And she's in this story riding a tractor. Okay. Next morning, Dad and I go harrowing together. He drives the ute, I get to drive the tractor. He trusts me to drive it, which makes me feel important. I open the gate so efficiently, like a farm girl, for him to drive through. On top of Ghost Gum Hill, he's already through. I'm walking back to the tractor, but it's vibrating so much that it loosens its not so tight handbrake. Starts inching away from the gate, heading down to, "Get on!" yells Dad from the window of the ute. I try, but it picks up momentum. "Get on! Get on! Get on the tractor!" I try, but its wheels are huge and moving, and there's a harrow of spiked metal dragging along behind it. "Get on the bloody tractor!" he yells, driving along beside it. It's rare to hear him swear. "I can't," I yell back, beginning to run. "Too dangerous." It picks up speed and takes off on its way, careering down the steep hill towards our biggest dam at the bottom of the paddock. He drives beside it, I run behind it, stopping at last to see the show of its slow motion sinking, bubbles and all, like a hippopotamus drinking. It turns its face up at the last minute, half bogged, half sunk, lifeless. An ambitious fly buzzes around Dad's face, preparing itself for the best moment to zoom into his shocked open mouth. I've got one eye on him and the other on the tractor. I don't think I've ever stood as still as this. He gestures for me to get in the ute, drives me back, no speaking. I fumble with all of the gates. The day goes slowly. I hide out in my room listening to 3XY. At about 1 o'clock, Dad knocks and enters before I said enter. "Come and check it for fire hazards," he says. He's obsessed with the farm catching fire. "It's in the water," I say. But I don't think he wants me to speak. We get to the bottom paddock, all heaviness and disappointment between us. We stand and stare at its twisted face, the headlights like eyes pleading towards the heavens. "No fires here." "Poor thing," he says. "Looks a bit sad." "Yeah," I say, looking at the sorry creature. And then he starts to laugh, and I am laughing, and we are laughing together. Nobody's hurt, it's only a piece of machinery. We are laughing so much that we have to sit down in the grass to stop from falling. There are tears in our eyes, not a cloud in the deepest, bluest of skies, just a flock of high-flying birds going by, and then simply insects buzzing, and the growing of grass. We wipe our eyes and sniff. "Well," he says, "haven't had a good laugh in ages." He wipes his eyes and sighs. "I think we lost a good tractor," he sniffs, "but I'd just about say it was worth it."
I've just suggested to Melissa that she that you might like to have some questions to ask her about this extraordinary book. And what a great talk, because it did really explain the richness and all the layers in this novel, which is so beautifully readable, but very, very packed with all sorts of things about this young woman's life. I have to say, I received a copy of this from Melissa. I was home waiting for me when I got home one night after work, and I couldn't actually sleep that night, so I thought, I'll just have a look at this book, I'll just read a few pages and turn out the light. And I just read it and read it and read it and read it and got to the end, and I thought, wow, well, there was no chance of sleep for the rest of the night, so I just got up and started the next day. But it is a really gripping read, as well as being a novel, a verse novel that is packed with ideas. And if you like my brilliant career, and who doesn't, you will love what Melissa has done here, because in a sense it's a response to a novel like that, I think. That did occur to you, I'm sure. But does anyone want to ask Melissa a question? And make her feel even more nervous? No, fine. Well,
more reading, another passage.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the virginity one.
I want to read about it. Really?
Another passage.
Appreciating.
The opening.
Oh, Virginia.
see, you were right to be persuaded into a reading. So yeah, come back.
Okay. Gosh, what shall I read? I thought you'd all be asleep by now.
No, I checked. Not a single person
Nobody?
is asleep.
What do I read? Okay.
Second favourite.
Which one?
Your second favourite. I'm imagining that was the first. What's your second favourite?
It wasn't, it was short. That was that.
I quite like that scene where the windscreen shatters.
Mother, could you read Losing Your Virginity?
No.
Yes!
That's my fault.
Where is it?
That's a
That's a spoiler. Anti-climactic.
The opening. Yeah, maybe that.
Okay. Okay, I'll just read the opening. No, I'll read this chapter 3. No. Oh. Sorry. Oh. The opening. Okay. We're travelling north along the Hume Highway behind 2 Wilson trucks stacked with everything we own. Dad will drive up tonight after he's stitched up a few more people. My younger brother and I sit in the dicky seat of our stepmother's sky blue Volvo. Usually we torment the oncoming drivers with crazy faces, but today our faces are naturally strange because the joke is on us. Pipstar whispers, I feel like we forgot something. Yeah, I say, then call out, did anyone pack our mother? Our new step family ignore the question, so we start pulling faces secretly at them and laugh out loud that the joke is still on us. It's the year of the child, the first time the world has fully acknowledged the rights of children, but we haven't seen any evidence of this. We had no say in the move. The couple in the car behind us wave. It reminds me of Mum and Dad in the audience waving up at me on the stage of my first ballet concert. That was years ago, when everything was normal. Pip gives them the peace sign, then after they pass, he turns his hand back to front. If life starts off well, then goes off the rails, you expect it to get back on them. Maybe it's best if life starts off the rails so you grow up with low expectations. We're heading north to live on a farm because of the dumb love letter, the one I found under Dad's stuffed crocodile, the croc he shot on his honeymoon with my horrified mother. I was going to take it to school for the dangerous animal science class, but then I found something much more scary underneath it. I know Mum's handwriting very well, even though you can hardly read it, but this letter was easy to read because it wasn't written by Mum. My dream would be to live on a horse stud with 17 horses. Oh, she wrote other unsavoury things to Dad about oil baths and candles and stuff, but the horsing around bit stuck in my mind, the way hair catches on a barbed wire fence when you try to sneak through. We passed Pentridge Prison, and Sarah, our younger stepsister, 1 year older than Pip, says, what do you have to do to get in there? Something wrong, says Jackie, or Mid-Step as I secretly call her. She's 1 year younger than me and 2 years older than Pip. She's got a big, bawdy, life-be-in-it laugh and an enviable supply of energy. Must take after her father. Christine, Big Step, our new stepmother, answers in her whispery, soft voice, you're only locked up if you've done something terribly wrong. Today I feel like a prisoner. What did I do? We passed Faulkner Cemetery, where Dad's mother's kept, and where Dad's father is going to be kept, and Dad too, I guess, and probably all of us in the end.
We pass McDonald's and Kentucky Fried without stopping, and drive on through Craigieburn until there are less and less houses, and then past the white fence estate of Robert Holmes a Court. Lucy, whispers Pipstar, short for Philip the Pipster. He's not very tall. How far away is this farm? I curl my top lip. Exactly 1 hour and a half too far. Driving through Calcallo, Pipstar looks vacant. I whispered to him, "Don't worry, I'll look after you until she comes back." He says he doesn't need looking after, and anyway, Dad says she's not coming back. That is possible. That could be true, but it's unlikely. She's not dead. On this matter, I reassure him, but it's little consolation. If she were dead, then it wouldn't have been a decision to go away. He looks like he's going to cry. I try pulling silly faces until he grins, but the rest of the trip we stare blankly at the disappearing city, the disappearing world as we've come to know it, and all of this disappearingness doesn't feel good. That's not a very cheery start, but I just want to say thank you so much all for being here, and actually, though it's been a very long ride, today is not the least bit disappointing.
So it just falls for me to say again, thank you all very much for coming. Congratulations to Melissa. Thank you, Gab, very much for that beautiful speech. And to recommend or instruct you to buy not 1 but 2 copies of this book, because once you've read it, you'll want to give it away.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to buy an extra copy so you can do that now and not lend the book, because lending, as Louisa Lawson, the famous poet, editor, inventor, and also mother of Henry, famously said, lending does not help the author. So while you have the opportunity, buy 2 copies. And I'm sure Melissa is going to sit up back and sign heaps of them. Yeah? Okay, great. And it says at the very end of my notes here, mingling. I think that's what we do now. Mingling. Thank you very much.
Sylvania Heights?
Congratulations, I'm so excited. So it's probably one of the first book launches I've been in for a long time. Yeah. But she's too special to miss it. Yeah. Have you been recording, you naughty?
Bar direction.
For Melissa's launch.
Yeah. Congratulations, Melissa.
I really want to read it, but I also want to lend it to Matilda because I think it'll really resonate with her. She loves poetry and stuff. Well, I don't know if she loves poetry, but she likes Shakespeare, so I guess that's just a bit of poetry.
The little guy did it. The little guy.
By yourself.
I am. I'm on the other side of this.